Yo, what is up guys? Today we're gonna review every bike I've ever ridden in my life in under 13 minutes. This list begins from the second I hopped on a motorcycle for the first time. These are very shallow, subjective summaries. We're aiming for quantity, not quality. If you guys want more in-depth reviews on any particular ones, let me know in the comments below. Keep in mind, these reviews are also heavily impacted by my level of experience at the time I rode each bike. Okay, 13 minutes. In chronological order, let's go. First up, 2009 TVS Apache 160. I'm including this because it was the very first motorcycle I ever rode. I was barely a teenager and I hadn't even driven a car properly. This experience is what got me hooked on bikes. Pros, super easy for a child to learn everything on. Cons, had to use the kickstart because the push to start didn't work. Next, 2015 Honda CB125. I rode this during the pre-learner course I did many years ago. Even though it had been ages, many years since I had actually sat on a motorcycle, it all came back to me and this thing was so easy to ride. I also was now an adult and not a child, so could actually handle a motorcycle a bit better. Pros, it felt like a BMX bike, so super easy to maneuver and learn on. Cons, it felt like a BMX bike. It was slow, even for someone who was riding for the second time ever. Next, 1990 Honda CBR 250RR. This is what I originally wanted as my first bike. My friend let me ride it and it was scary because the past two bikes I'd ridden were naked and upright, so these aggressive supersport ergos caught me off guard. Pros, sounds so damn good. I mean, it's got a 20k rev limit. It looks amazing and it feels amazing with those supersport ergos. Cons, I was not experienced enough to properly enjoy it. And these bikes are just getting expensive and ridiculously hard to find and maintain properly thanks to their age and diminishing number of parts. Next, 2008 Kawasaki Ninja 250R. This is the first bike I rode after booking my permit. My dad bought one and we used to ride it up and down our backyard to get the hang of riding, as neither of us had our permits yet and couldn't legally take it out onto the road. Pros, awesome bike to start on, easy ergos, lightweight, extremely forgiving, looks cool for a cheap learner bike, it's complacent and reliable, which kind of leads me to the cons, it's boring. It was exciting because it was one of the first bikes I got to properly ride, but not because it was a Ninja 250R. It was uninspiring in terms of its sound and its performance. Next, 1995 Suzuki GSR600 Bandit. This was officially my first bike, and the first bike I took out onto the roads after obtaining my permit. So it'll always have a special place in my heart. This example had been brought back to life by a great mechanic and you could really tell. Pros, the sound. I can't get over it. It's such a big part of the riding experience for me, so you can imagine how I felt about the Bandit's 4-cylinder engine screaming at 16k RPM. The inline 4 also meant it was super smooth compared to all the other learner bikes I'd ridden, bar one, which I'll get to. It offered a very raw riding experience given its age, which made me feel very connected to the bike and the road, but this was also ultimately its downfall for me. Cons. It was old. I made a whole video on this, but in short, no ABS, crap headlights, basic gauge cluster, carby engine, etc, etc. It was a grey import which made getting parts for it quite difficult. Even parts from the Australian delivered Bandits didn't fit properly. It was also not that great for freeway riding, as it was both a 250cc and a naked, and I had started to do a lot of freeway commuting. Next, 2016 Yamaha YZF-R3. This was the bike I bought when I accepted that commuting had become the largest part of my motorcycle journey. I wanted something that was more modern and reliable than the Bandit, but still had that fun factor when ripping through the hills. Pros. I loved this bike. It was sporty, it looked good, it had ABS, fuel injection, a bulletproof engine, it handled so well being a lightweight machine, and it was also very narrow, which made handling even better and filtering quite easy too. It's a great bike to take to the track, whether you're a beginner or a professional. Cons. It sounded so bad, especially coming from the Bandit. The 180 parallel twin is just boring in terms of noise and performance. It just wasn't big enough. Yes, it could sufficiently handle the freeways, but not comfortably. The 320cc just didn't cut it for me personally. Next, 2002 Honda VTR 250. This is the lone pig I got when getting my R3 roadworthied. Pros: it is so lightweight and easy to maneuver, it felt like a BMX bike.
Alright, so, wow.
The V2 engine felt and sounded a lot better than the P-twins I've ridden. It was kind of reminiscent of a baby Ducati Monster or something. Overall, it was a playful bike. It felt mischievous compared to my R3, and it put a grin on my face. Cons: it was a beater. Everything was squeaky and falling apart. Freeway riding was sketchy as on this thing. Next, 2006 Suzuki GSR600. My dad bought this after selling his Ninja 250R, and it was the first non-Lambs bike I ever got to ride. Pros: the inline 4 600cc absolutely sings. I'm so in love with the sound of this bike. This engine, paired with the Yoshimura exhaust, is unbeatable. It sounds better than the Z1000 he later bought, in my opinion. The power is exhilarating compared to Learner-approved motorcycle power. Even under the power band, it feels more powerful than any Lambs bike I've ever ridden, but when I hit that magic RPM, it felt like I entered warp speed. Cons: this bike has many flaws in my opinion. Its handling, its throttle response, its brakes, its lack of storage for a naked bike. Even my 250 Bandit was better for that. Unfortunately, it certainly isn't one of my favorites. Next, 2018 Kawasaki Ninja 400. This is the bike I currently own and daily. I absolutely love this thing to bits. Pros: looks so damn good, especially with that KRT livery. The 400 engine is perfect in my opinion because it's got just enough power to feel comfortable on the freeway, but it's small enough to get cheaper registration and insurance and decent fuel economy here in Victoria. Its handling is insane. It's got a short wheelbase, it's lightweight, it's sporty, but it's still comfy, and it's something you can take to the track again as a beginner or a professional. In my opinion, this is the perfect first bike for a sporty beginner rider, more so than the CBR 500 and the Ninja 650. Cons: again, it's got a 180 P-twin engine. It feels and it sounds quite boring. It does for some reason sound better than the R3 though, and I believe that's probably because of the 80 extra cubic centimeters it's got under its belt. Next, Suzuki HJ 125. I rode this in Vietnam around the Ha Giang Loop. Pros: reliable workhorse. Gets the job done. It got me from A to B without killing me. It also handled all of my luggage with no issues for the entirety of the 4 days. Cons: it's a single cylinder, it was super boring, the handling was boring, it's just a very lukewarm, get the job done sort of bike. And the brakes were just so shit, but I think that was more a maintenance thing. Maybe. It led to some sketchy situations downhill in the twisties of Vietnam. Next, the Honda Blade 110. I rode this in Vietnam once to go for dinner with my mate on the back. Pros: it did what it needed to. It handled a combined weight of 170 kilos with no issues, which blows my mind. And scooters are just fun, I came to realize after riding this, especially when you're mucking about with a mate. Cons: we ran out of petrol in the middle of a busy roundabout. Not fun, one of the scariest experiences I've ever had on a motorbike. Next, 2005 Kawasaki Z1000. This is the first and only leader bike I've ever ridden. Pros: the power and the sound. The 1000cc inline 4 paired with an Arrow exhaust sounds so horrifically, disgustingly brutal, and I loved it. Even at idle, it sounds like the monster under your bed waiting to gobble you up the moment you misstep. It handles really well compared to the GSR600, surprisingly. It looked pretty cool for a naked bike, especially given the fact that I'm a fully fed sports bike kind of guy. This thing scared the bejesus out of me, but I treated it with respect. cons. It was almost too loud. If I rode it for over 10-15 minutes with no earplugs, I'd start getting a headache and blood would start pouring out of my ears. I never took it over 7k RPM because it was just so phenomenally, ridiculously powerful compared to the other bikes I've ridden, and unlike the 600, I knew I would insta-kill myself if I went wide open throttle on it. Next, 2022 Triumph Trident 660. I recently rode this, go watch my review. Pros, smooth as butter. The entire bike, just all of it, everything, the engine, the throttle response, the gear shifts, hell, even the kickstand.
Fuck, even the kickstand's smooth.
It's surprisingly narrow for a 3-cylinder 660cc, which makes it feel very flickable and very maneuverable, especially at low speeds. The seating position is very upright, so it was comfy, easy on the back, and no strain on the wrists. Moving on to the cons, it was too smooth and too comfortable for me. I want my bikes to feel a little more raw and a little more sporty because that's where the excitement comes from for me. It's what makes me feel connected to the bike, and it's what makes me feel connected to the road. Whew! There you have it, guys. 13 bikes in 13 minutes. I think I did all right. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I appreciate all the support. I will catch you on the next one.
You say you got them guns, but I've never seen you bang. You say you got them drugs, but I've never seen you slang.